Oh, hey Afnan, what's up?
Ezekiel! There's a nuke that's about to drop on us.
Okay, and?
We also have a Apush project that's due in 5 days.
What? Warning, this video contains low budget animation, bad jokes, and horrible editing. You're at risk of cringing into oblivion, so please have bleach and holy water on standby to unsee the man-made horrors beyond your comprehensions you're about to witness in a few seconds. Viewer aggression is advised.
Once upon a time, a silly man with a silly mustache teamed up with 2 other silly leaders, thinking that would be a funny idea to start a whole world war in an attempt to take over the world. Eventually, Japan, with their comedian mind, thought it would be funny to attack United States Pearl Harbor, but United States didn't think Japan was so funny. The United States wasn't going to let that slide. So, for payback, the United States entered a war that the silly mustache man created and made the silly mustache man make himself go night-night, and as well make Pizza Land to leave the war. Afterwards, the United States decided to start the Manhattan Project to make a big bomb to stop the Japanese as they show no sign of surrendering after their allies surrendered.
Plutonium, the New Mexican Desert, Oppenheimer. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect little experiment. And thus, the Manhattan Project was born. The Manhattan Project was directed by none other than the legendary man Julius Oppenheimer, also known today as the father of the atomic bomb. He and 500 scientists worked together to create the first ever atomic bomb. Wait, what the hell is this? The first bomb test was detonated on July 16, 1945 at 5:29 in the New Mexican desert. Eventually, Oppenheimer's work has finally paid off, as on August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb called Little Boy was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan. Not long after, on August 9, 1945, an atomic bomb fittingly named Fat Man was dropped on Nagasaki, Japan. These events struck fear to people all around the globe, as many thought surely this would cause Japan to surrender and end the bloodlasting war. With no sign of Japan's surrender, the US started the development of a third atomic bomb. Their plan was to use plutonium core known as Rufus, or in modern times, Demon Core, to put in the atomic bomb to spread radiation. Now, the Demon Core may just look like an ordinary harmless metal-shaped cannonball. However, this isn't an ordinary cannonball. In fact, it's one of the most dangerous weapons if used incorrectly, and can lead to exposure to radiation in an instant, which eventually leads towards the most gruesome death. Sadly, 2 scientists passed away when testing the core. After 2 weeks, Japan had surrendered on August 15, 1945. US continued to test the plutonium core for later developments of atomic bombs. Harry Daghlian was one of the physicists working on the Manhattan Project, who was playing with the very cool shining ball by himself, like the little selfish brat he is. On August 21st, 1945, Daghlian decided to test out the core by surrounding it with bricks made of tungsten carbide. However, Daghlian realized he placed too many bricks as his monitoring equipment read the plutonium core, so Daghlian carefully removed the bricks away from the core. But in doing so, he dropped the brick directly onto the core. At that very second, Daghlian was immediately exposed to a mass amount of radiation and was quickly rushed to the hospital. But sadly, on September 15, 1945, Daghlian passed away. After this incident, there were new safety regulations when handling a core, such as for 2 persons to work at the core instead of just 1. However, later on the safety regulation would be proved to be useless.
9 months after the Daghlian incident, one of Daghlian Manhattan Project colleagues, Louis Slotin, also wanted to have some fun with the shiny ball. On May 21st, 1946, Slotin was demonstrating an experiment to a group of 7, lowering a beryllium dome over the core. There just needed to be a slight gap from the beryllium dome over the core, or a big whoopsie whoopsie would have happened. Surely, Louis was smart enough to put a reasonable object between the beryllium dome over the core, right? Well, can you guess what was used to put a gap between the beryllium dome over the core? You've guessed it, a screwdriver was used to put the gap between the beryllium dome over the core. Slotin, with his physicist's brain, was smart enough to use a screwdriver to stop the beryllium dome from one of the greatest impacts. However, he's not as smart as you think, as the screwdriver actually slipped from the beryllium dome over the core. Slotin, just like Daghlian, was exposed to mass amount of radiation and was immediately hospitalized, but sadly after 9 days from the incident, Slotin died on May 30th, 1946. These two incidents caused the United States to change their safety regulations for core management for the second time. One of these regulations was created with the new technological development of using remotely controlled machines instead of humans to assemble or test the core. This new development of machinery allowed the United States to produce mass number of nuclear weapons more efficiently and safely. This discovery has as well highly enhanced the United States' effort in the arms race later in the future to gain more superiority than the Soviets.